Hi guys, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Rosie, and today I wanted to do something that's really special to me. So if you don't know, the first week of October is National Dyslexia Awareness Week. So I wanted to share with you guys the story of how I found out I was dyslexic at 18, because I think there's a real lack of awareness of what dyslexia actually is and how it can affect people, and I think it leads to a lot of misdiagnosis or later diagnosis, in the sense that people don't go through life, people go through life without realising that they are struggling. So I will first tell you the story of how I went about getting diagnosed, and then I'll give you some details about what you can do from my experience. So yeah, I'll tell you those things in that order, and hopefully it will help people a bit. So for my whole life I have had some differences, but they're not really very noticeable. So for me, one of the guidelines is slow development stages, but for me that wasn't the case. So things that I struggled with were when I learned to ride a bike. I didn't struggle riding the bike, but I didn't understand the concept of a brake. So instead of using both of my hands to brake, I just stick my feet out, and each time I would forget to do it. And some of the times I have nearly ended up in the lake where I used to go riding with my parents, and they used to just grab my saddle, because otherwise I just would have gone in, because I didn't understand the concept of a brake. But I had no problem riding the bike. Another thing is I struggled to learn to write. So, well, it's not that I struggled to learn to write, but I couldn't write neatly or legibly. So we used to get a pen permit in school, and in primary school this is, and I never earned it because my handwriting was just I struggled too much with holding the pen. And yeah, that was things like remembering number sequences. So when we learned like the times tables, I could never remember them, and being taught math throughout the whole of my education, I just couldn't remember any of the sequences. But I've never had a problem with reading. I was always above the average for reading, so by the end of year 3 I'd read out of all of the colours, and I was a free reader by the end of year 3, which wasn't common in my school. And I've always read loads. I've always read above my age, but I did used to get these really bad headaches when it came to reading, and I couldn't see the board properly, so I used to go to Specsavers quite a lot, and they gave me glasses, but I didn't need these glasses. These glasses didn't help. I still couldn't see, but I could see all the objects around me, but the words were I just couldn't see the words properly. Like, they had a blur to them, but everything else didn't. So I was confused. Every time I went to Specsavers, I was confused. I did not know what was wrong, but I just knew these glasses that they'd given me weren't the right thing. So that they didn't work. So it's things like with my GCSEs and stuff, we had to memorise quite a lot of stuff, and I used to break down crying because it just would not stay in my brain no matter how much I revised. And I did a lot of revising. So for things like my German GCSE, I had to memorise a whole double side of A4, and I just couldn't get it to stick properly. Or for our English GCSE, we had to memorise 16 poems, 2 plays and a book, like key quotes and stuff, and I just couldn't remember them, and I used to break down crying about it because it just wouldn't stick, and I didn't know why. I was doing everything that they told me to do, but it just wouldn't go in. So yeah, and there's other things, obviously. I'm just pointing out some key examples of things that were potentially markers, but because we didn't know anything about it, no, we just didn't pick it up. None of my schools picked it up. Nothing picked it up. So yeah, fast forward to me being 18 and learning to drive. So my instructor was very lovely, and they were really patient with me. So I found learning to drive extremely difficult. I could not remember how to do the things that she told me to do. So by that I mean stuff like with manoeuvres, as in like parallel parking, reverse bay parking. The biggest thing for me was that I had to relearn was when was going backwards, my brain wanted to flip the way that you steered the steering wheel. So if I wanted to steer right, if I wanted to go right, I would steer left, and vice versa. And obviously that's not how driving backwards works. So I could never get my head around the stuff like that, and it was difficult to make my feet and my hands and stuff do stuff like in coordination, and any acronyms and stuff that she taught for me to remember how to do things, I just couldn't remember. So I often used to break down crying in my lessons because I was so frustrated with myself. I just could not do it. Oh, I also forgot to mention, I struggle with my left and right as well. I cannot remember it, and I cannot tell the time that if it's not on a digital clock. And I struggle with 24-hour time, so everything has to be 12-hour. Those are some pretty big things that I thought I should mention. So yeah, my driving instructor suggested to me, she said, is there a chance that you may be dyslexic? And I was like, no. I have never been tested for it, but I don't have it. And she was like, well, you drive like a dyslexic person. And I was like, thank you. Is that what do I say to that? And she said, I recommend that when you go to university that you get tested for it. And I was like, okay. So the reason she said that was because her daughter was dyslexic, so she taught her daughter to drive, and so she had experience with it. So I was kind of like, and then what I did was I went online after she said that and did some online screening tests, and I flagged up for them quite highly. Then I was like, I got my best friend, I got my mum, and I got my dad to also do the same screening tests, and they were all significantly lower. I'm talking, my score was like 80 something and my mum's was 30. So it was quite a drastic difference, and I was like, maybe there's something in this. So fast forward to September 2019, and I get to university, and during Freshers Week they were screening people for if you wanted to, they were screening people for special learning difficulties. So I booked an appointment at the disability building, and I got screened. And what this was you go to with I assume there's some kind of like counsellor, and they take you through this questionnaire of things that are like attributed to dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia and ADHD. And it's not just for present day, it's from your childhood. So all of these stuff has to have happened from a young age. otherwise, because you can't just develop it in adulthood. So they test it, they ask you stuff from your childhood. So I flagged up the symptoms of all 4 of them. Now, my university only tested, should I say, for dyspraxia, dyscalculia and dyslexia. This is because that's something that is easier to diagnose, I think. You have to go to your GP as an adult to get diagnosed with ADHD. So, and the process of that is pretty similar. So you'd go to your GP, you talk about your symptoms, they would do a questionnaire with you. You would have to do it, and your parent would have to do it, or somebody close to you in your childhood. So that it would be able to check for these same things, and then you would be referred to a specialist and they would assess you. I believe that's the process for ADHD. I haven't gone through that myself. I am debating doing that because, like I said, in my screening I did flag up for that as well, and I have been struggling a lot with things that could be read as symptoms. There's a lot of crossover as well between special learning difficulties, so yeah, that's just something I would just throw in there. So yeah, once they looked at my results basically for this questionnaire, I got given an appointment with an assessor. Now this assessment was 2 hours long. It was very tiring mentally. So they give you lots of different types of tests which test the stuff like motor skills, numeracy skills, memory skills, English skills, all of these things that are like linked in. They ask you questions about your like childhood again, and like developmental questions. Because like I said, I didn't have delayed speech, I didn't have delayed walking, which are big indicators a child might have dyslexia or dyspraxia. But yeah, so for me it was things like really bad spelling, and they did like a writing test, and I got told that the way that I hold my pen isn't actually how you're supposed to hold your pen, and that they asked me questions about like with cutlery and stuff, because I struggle with using cutlery. I use them in the wrong hands and I get confused and try and use the fork to cut things and the knife to spit like a fork, if that makes sense. So yeah, in this assessment there was like ones where they were like asking you to put like blocks into shapes, and there was like ones where you could like repeat the sequence back, stuff like that. So it was really extensive, and it was quite easy though, to do it through uni. So I imagine the process would be quite similar if you weren't at uni. And you could probably go to your GP and go through a similar screening and assessing process at your GP. I don't know too much about that, but that's what I would guess. For university, you do have to pay, I think it was £200 for screening, or £300 for screening. The assessment is free if they find you to have flagged up for stuff, because otherwise I think that would cost you £800 if you did it privately. So it is quite an expensive process. If you are someone who is less advantaged, then they do offer assistance with that, so don't worry too much about the financial cost of things, because there is help for those who need it. And so I got my report back, and dyslexia was what came back. So all of these things throughout my life now had a reason. So the reason I couldn't see very well for words was because I have 3D vision. So what that means is the words sort of separate, and like there's like, you know how you would watch a 3D film and you take the glasses off and the blue and red they like separate? That's kind of what the words do, but obviously it's not coloured, it's black. But yeah, so that had a reason finally, after years and years of going to that. But I did have to go and have my eyes checked, so that's both by an optician and by a behavioural optometrist, so that checks that there's like nothing wrong with the like muscles in your eye and stuff. So I did that and there wasn't anything. My vision was really good, and there's nothing wrong with my muscles in my eye, so it was literally all just dyslexia causing me not to be able to see and giving me migraines. So at least I knew what was causing it. I did flag up like to having like loose symptoms of dyspraxia and dyscalculia as well, but the assessor explained that there's a lot of overlap. So I predominantly have dyslexia, and there's just some things that cross over, if that makes any sense. I don't have enough symptoms of both dyspraxia and dyscalculia for it to be diagnosed fully as that, so that's why they just said it like loosely overlaps, and that it would explain difficulties with like tying my shoelaces and the bike riding stuff and that. So it was really nice to have explanation for everything, and the process was very easy at my university. I don't know if it would be going through a GP or at a different location, but that's from my experience. Now if you're at university, the help that they can give you is you will be able to get a laptop. You'll have to contribute £200 towards that, but they'll be able to give you a laptop, and on that laptop you will be given software that will help you take notes, read things, and just every type of software that you may need for your specific course. They can give you microphones to record lectures with, they can give you printers to print off stuff. You get the paper and the ink provided as well. I got a C pen which reads words out and it will tell you what they mean and stuff if you do a lot of article reading. And for my uni, the most helpful thing that I got, and I don't know if it exists in any other universities, but it was called a blue card, and this gives you exceptions for grammar and spelling, so you won't get as marked as harshly because obviously you have a disability and they need to acknowledge that. So that was really helpful for me because my grammar and my spelling is atrocious. It would be within reason though. They will still mark you on it, but not as harshly as somebody who didn't have dyslexia. So other things they can give you is like extra time for assignments if you need it. If you do exams, then they can give you special paper, they can give you a special room, ear defenders, lots of things. There's lots of ways that they can help you. So it's really easy. And if you're in the workplace, you can get assessed by occupational health, and you can get software put onto your work computers to help you read the stuff with like filters and stuff like that. And if you may need them, my work did give me 10-minute breaks from computers, so because I got screens gave me migraines if I spent too long trying to read stuff with them. So don't worry, with your disability, there's not much that you can do about it, but learning how to manage it and stuff, you'll be still able to have as much a normal life as anybody else. Now, the key thing I would like people to take away from it is dyslexia, just like any other disability, is a spectrum. So whilst there's people who have severe dyslexia, which would be debilitating to some extent, there are people who maybe have hid it and are really good at masking it, and you wouldn't be able to tell. And the worst thing that you can say is if somebody says to you, I'm dyslexic, but go, oh, you don't look like you're dyslexic, or how can you be dyslexic? You did really well in your exams, or whatever. Being dyslexic does not make you stupid. It does not mean that you can't do stuff, like academically, or, you know, it doesn't mean that you are lesser than someone without it. And that's something that is I've really struggled to get my head around, because that is literally everything. I had a job interview with a company, and in that interview they said, oh, so can you explain to me about dyslexia and what is dyslexia? I thought it was just you can't read and write. I would love to just to be here. Being dyslexic does not mean that you can't read and write. It means that your brain can struggle with processing things, but it does not prohibit you from accessing things. For some people it may be so severe that yes, that is the case, but a lot of people that isn't the case, and it's offensive to say that it is. So for me, yeah, I have auditory and visual processing issues, which means I can't take in information as quickly as other people, and I may have to reread something or get somebody to say it again, but it doesn't mean I don't understand you. And I'm just coming from a place of frustration, because in when I've been going for interviews, when I've been at work and stuff, I've had comments about it, or people saying that they'll be accommodating and they're just not. So I went to a job interview and they asked me to give them a presentation, and they gave me a day to prepare it, and I had to use a script because I couldn't remember what I was going to say, you know, the memory problem. And they didn't give me any accommodation. They were like, we don't like how you communicate, so you're not good for this role because you use the script. And I was like, I literally put in my presentation about how my dyslexia affects me, so you obviously don't care, you know. So I would be, if you're going for like jobs and stuff, I would highly recommend going for ones that say they're disability confident, because the employer that I had that was disability confident, they were a lot more understanding and compassionate about it than employees that say, than companies that say that they're disability friendly, but they don't have that checkered thing on it. So just take everything with like a pinch of salt, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not you. If you get feedback in an interview that is something that is your dyslexia symptoms, don't take it personally, because you can't change it. It's not constructive feedback, it's just criticism, and you wouldn't want to work there anyway, because it means that they're not disability friendly. So yeah, that's why I wanted to make this video, because like I wanted to show people that being dyslexic, you can be high academic achiever, and you know, I achieved a first class in my degree. I got all A's in my GCSEs. I didn't do so well in my A levels. They're not bad results, but I got BBC, and that was because I was struggled so hard, because it was mainly memory content. But yeah, you can be a high achiever, you can be you know, you can be anything. You can be any number of whatever you want to be. Dyslexia is just a part of you. It doesn't define you. It doesn't stop you from doing stuff. It doesn't make you any different from anyone else. So I just wanted to make this video to raise awareness, and to also tell people what they could do if they maybe think that they've got it later on in life. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it informative and helpful, and thank you so much. It means a lot to watch this, and it means a lot for me to put this out there. So yeah, I also wanted to apologise for the lack of video last week. I was really ill last week. I just could not get behind a camera to get the video out there. I will try and give you another video in another week, so like 2 videos a week in 1 week, just to make up for it. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now, guys.